Hello, and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
I know, and we, haven't done a podcast, it seems like, in a good couple of weeks here. And there's probably one of the longest breaks we've probably ever had in podcasting, other than maybe when the times you moved. I think that might have been about it.
Yeah, well, if I have to be 100% honest, don't worry. The podcast is still going on to our listeners, still going. So, but I can honestly say it's mostly things on my end. I've just been busy as hell. I wish I could say, oh, I've been doing this, I've been doing that. Like I've been working, I've been doing I'm practicing my Dutch and going to Dutch classes and also just other things. I'll be honest, getting your driver's license here is way harder here than it is in the States. Like they intentionally put on like trick questions, like in a way to fuck with you. Like it'll be like, it's almost more high tech the way they do it, you know, because it's all on a screen and all that. And it's like, you don't hand in like an SAT, like little, like, you know, like number 2 pencil kind of like sheet or nothing like that. It's like, you go all on a screen, but some of the things they throw at you, like, okay, this is an animal emergency vehicle. Does it have priority? And it has a couple of answers. Like if it has blue lights and a siren, it has priority. And then like, you know, it's like, well, if it has blue lights and a siren, yeah, it would have priority. Like, well, this doesn't have blue lights and a siren, so it's wrong. Like, well, you're asking if it did. Like, yes, if it did, but it doesn't, so it's wrong. Like, oh, okay, I know they usually fucking don't. So it kind of hits you with a lot of that kind of shit. And the margin for error is really small. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've always thought in the U.S. that they practically give out driver's licenses like they came out of a Cracker Jack box. Like if you don't get a driver's license, it's like you really messed up because that is not that hard to get. Like it should. I almost feel like it does need to be a little bit tougher. I mean, realistically, we got people that are like 99 years old and they're like, I just submitted my form back in. They gave me another 10 years. All right. Fuck off, everyone.
I don't know how old. I think 70 or 75 here. Are just like, all right, old man, fucking prove it. You know, they hold them to task here. So
we're taking you out to the racetrack now. Now you're going to start to compete in the Indy races. If you can't get first place, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
The old guy gets it like, damn it, I didn't think that was going to work. Son of a bitch.
Well, other
I was watching that Gran Turismo movie and I was like, if that little fucker can do it, so can I.
He says, he like gets up like, oh fuck, like you hear like it just sounds like someone's like crackling that whole thing of like that bubble wrap as soon as he stands up, like shit.
Sorry guys, I left my Amazon packaging on the ground. Walks past it. Oh, I guess that was was my back that time.
Yeah. Well, something else happened actually just today. A Titan has fallen.
Like a Titan AE?
The Smash Mouth lead singer passed today.
Oh yeah, he did. Kyle sent me that there. He's like, oh, you know, we lost another guy there. And I was like, oh, the Smash Mouth singer. I'm like, well, we also lost Jimmy Buffett like 2 days ago. So
yeah, Jimmy, you know, he's,
you know, I do like some of those older Jimmy Buffett songs, you know, back in like his, you know, Bob Dylan meets Jim Croce days.
You know, not to speak ill of the dead, but the thing about Jimmy Buffett is, don't get me wrong, like songs you know by heart, you know, that greatest hits, that's kind of where it stops for me. Like, cause you know, when I was younger, I thought I loved Jimmy Buffett, but the thing is my grandparents had a houseboat on Lake Shasta and they would play that a lot. And I realized my like it's more charged through my nostalgia for that particular album. Cause everything I looked past that, I don't really give a shit about. And even some of those songs on there, I'm like Cheeseburger on Paradise. Like, yeah, no, this is kind of rough, but I mean, don't get me wrong. Like he went to Paris, fantastic song. Even
that's a great song.
Let's get drunk and screw. Yeah, sure. Fuck it. Why not? Yeah. Okay. But like, I guess everything about him leads me to believe he was a fucking asshole. And I'm not one of those people grading solely on like a musician or an artist if they're a good person or not. But it's also one of those things like, he lived a good life, and I'm not that sad for him. It's whatever. Good, yeah, you know, he had a hell of a run.
Yeah, as I said, like it's all like his like I like some of those tunes that he, as I said, on those early albums he got that they'll never be on like a greatest hits album or anything like that, but he's just got in a sense that stuff that is in a similar Jim Croce kind of style. That's the best way I kind of feel at it. I think everybody wanted to be Bob Dylan in like the late '60s, early '70s. And then at some point, like they discovered a different genre and fused it together and said, okay, I guess this is who I really am.
I don't even see the Bob Dylan. I see the Bob Dylan-ness in Jim Croce, and I kind of see some of the Jim Croce-ness in Buffett. Like, I see it kind of like, okay, this is like Mother Ocean. That's kind of like, if Jim Croce. Don't get me wrong, I'm by no means a Jimmy Buffett expert. I'm not. Mm-hmm. I know songs by heart. That's the one I know.
Yeah.
But Mother Ocean, that seems like, okay, if Jim Croce was on vacation, all right, he went to Paris. I can kind of see that, but mm-hmm. then you got like, he's like, you gotta shake to the left, shake to the right, like that kind of shit. And like, oh, I don't see that Jim Croce. I think at some point he was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna go down to like, I have no idea his story, but like, I'm gonna go down to like south of the border, go to some tropical towns, beach towns for some inspiration, and he just never left. That's kind of how it came to me.
Well, that's
how
I think
it came across.
That's what I think literally happens. He discovered that his target audience is like, you know what? The drunken guys on vacation, that's my audience. And then as he got older, he was like, you know who's always drunken on vacation? College kids. And there will always be a new batch every year.
But at that point, they're just like, I can't imagine like a college kid, like even our generation, like being like, dude, turn up that Buffett. Like, I can't imagine that.
It lasted for a good while though. Like, I mean, maybe not in like probably not in maybe the last 20 years as much, but I think even in like the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, yeah, like
Gen X,
he did have like a much more like a resurgence with like the next generations and so on like that, because yeah, he just was the party rock. He was like the old party rock guy. And that was like what he was, going with and so on.
Like I could imagine like someone who like loves like Soundgarden and Mother Love Bone and like, and then all of a sudden he's just like, whatever, Jimmy Buffett's here. I'll see it. We're already here in Cabo. Fuck it. Sure. So I could see it being something kind of like that.
Yeah, so I mean, even speaking of Smash Mouth, I feel like there was probably a lot of those concerts where you had the combo of like, here's the ska music with like Smash Mouth and Less Than Jake and all this stuff, and then Jimmy Buffett's going to be headlining the night too. Oh, what about that? That's cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing with Smash Mouth is like, my wife tells me I'm a music snob, and I don't think I am, but she tells me I am. But at the same time, though, it's like one of those things where, like, I don't think I know enough about certain bands to be a proper music snob. But at the exact same time,
maybe that's your calling, is that you're gonna have to be one of those guys like smoking a long cigarette, like sitting in like a coffee house, like writing the review and like the newspaper for like what you think about the the latest tunes.
For like, for people watching the video version of this podcast, I just have this expression on my face all the time.
Yeah.
Like that's me in every thumbnail, just like, I'm like, oh, that's when he likes it,
Yeah.
But I don't know, because you hear some of those music. I couldn't name any of them, but you hear some of the YouTube music critics. And it just like, this track just sounds so overproduced. I'm like, it's the Black Keys. I think they're kind of cool, but it's whatever. Anyway, there was like Smash Mouth was probably the first band I was into because I think before you just kind of listen to shit and you're like, oh, I've heard this song in that movie. I heard this song in that show. I kind of like those. Oh, that's the same guy. Oh, Astro Lounge or whatever. Oh yes, I think like Astro Lounge and Space Jam soundtrack were the first two albums I bought. So it's one of those things like, and then as time went on, like, oh yeah, maybe Smash Mouth is kind of cheesy and kind of silly, but at the exact same time, I'm not gonna lie, when I heard he died, I was like, oh well, there's a part of my childhood gone,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Smash Mouth was once when they came out in the 90s. As a kid, I did not like them at all because I was just so much of a rebel rouser, even as a child, that I was like, not 60s, 70s is not good enough, you know? And weirdly, as like time went on, like in like maybe like the last 10 years, like when I started like listening to more of that kind of stuff and going back in time, and I was like, oh, you know, Smash was actually pretty good. And it takes me back because even though like I used to be like, oh, the All-Star song, the song's so lame. You almost hear it now and you're like, yeah, I know where I was in 1998. You could like literally like pinpoint it to like all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, Jared Cramp had a birthday then. He got the Smash Mouth album. He got Banjo Kazooie. Like, it's all coming back. We were getting pizza at Pizza Factory. Good times.
Everyone born after 1999 just tuned out. Assuming we have any of those listeners anyway. But the thing about like even Smash Mouth is it's kind of like how'd I put it? I feel like because you know they were kind of the meme band for a while because a lot of kids grew up watching Shrek, so everyone associates, even though it came out before then. All Star. They associate that song with Shrek, and then on top of that, they have their Monkeys cover. I'm a Believer. Yeah. So they just became known as the Shrek Band, and it weighed on them. I think it weighed on them being the butt of a lot of jokes because have you ever seen like, I mean, I know like not to speak ill of the dead. I said I'm sad, but have you seen like the concert footage of him getting in a fight with somebody at like a bread festival?
No, I never have.
There's like a bread festival or something. I'm not sure if it's a bread festival or bread and wine festival, but
it's such a weird one. Like, where are you playing at this week? No, we're playing at the bread festival. You know, gonna have Dave's bread there. We're gonna have some sourdough from San Francisco there. You know, there's gonna be a lot of bread tasting going on tonight. You know, people are gonna feel bloated the next morning. That's definitely true.
I feel like being adventurous. We got some sesame seeds, so look out.
So look out. You know, it's gonna get dangerous. It's gonna get wild tonight.
And yes, we have the gluten-free ones over there if you must, you know.
For those people who decide to bring one of them along to our bread festival. One of our non-bread believers.
Shit. Well, anyway, yeah, Smash Mouth is playing now, and the thing about it though, somebody, granted, I totally get it. But somebody like threw a loaf of bread at him or was talking shit or something.
Yeah, it's like, what else is he gonna throw?
I don't know if it was like a baguette, like he threw like a spear or something. I don't know, but like either he yelled something at him or he threw a bag. I like to imagine he just chucked a baguette like it was a spear, and he just barely dodged it. Like what? You know, just went off, and basically for like. They're getting ready to start like All Star, and they're doing that bow, 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 you know, that opening riff, you know.
Yeah.
And but there is here getting ready. He stops like, whoa, hey motherfucker, throw that bread again. See what happens. Keep talking that shit. I want to have a good time, but you're up here being an asshole, ruin it for everybody. And the rest of the band just kind of look at each other, just kind of like has that same bow. Just kind of looking, just sort of like
one guy's like slowly munching a piece of bread at the same time.
Like they're all just looking around. He just getting into it, like, all right, we're gonna try this again. Fuck, you know, gets out there, and like they're about to, but somebody throws something else, like fuck you.
I feel like you just had to after you go on that someone's got to throw another thing of bread. It's just in the moment. It's
like, dude, we got the all weekend pass. Don't get us thrown out. Like, fuck, it's the third day.
I just love this idea of a loaf of bread. I mean, like, let's be like a loaf of bread getting chucked that you'd be like throwing like depending on what it is. It's like that, but it's just like getting hit with a pillow almost. You know what I mean? It's not like someone's throwing like a solid frozen water bottle or something very dangerous, or you know, glass bottles like in the olden days. Like it's like the Blues Brothers concert.
Hey, who threw this rye? This
is the bread of Jesus, damn it! Respect it! Still just love that. I just love it's just the fact like, oh, it's at a bread festival. Like that in itself is already like, you know, when you get to the level where you're like, when you thought playing like the county fair was one thing. And now you're at the bread festival. Not saying I think it's the bread festival. I bet you there's all sorts of great bread there. You know, it just seems like a weird one to be like, hey, what we doing? Headline the bread festival.
What was his name? Was it Steve Harwell? I want to say.
You know, I can't remember. It's like, as I said, I'm not the most expert
Steve
on
Harwell, yeah. Or Harwell. Steve Harwell. Well, folks, you know, seek his monument, look around you. That's all.
Well, you know, last year, there was I literally could have had an opportunity to go see Smash Mouth, and it realistically could have had an opportunity to somehow, some way go backstage because one of the clients that goes to Laura or whatever, her like I don't know, like cousin or nephew or something is like I don't know, like the bass player or something in the band and whatnot, and so she went there to go, hang out with the band and see it, and this was at the state fair, but that same day at the state fair was Anthrax and Black Label Society and Hatebreed. So that's where I was at instead.
Yeah, you know what? In all honesty, even with my childhood, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I never say, dude, let's put up some Smash Mouth. It's time to smash, play some Smash Brothers, do with some Smash Mouth. No, that has never happened. But it is one of those things I'll say, like, given the opportunity to, like, meet them and go backstage, I would be like, what else you got going on today? Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, sure. Yeah. We'll into it, or the opportunity to see Black Label Society and Anthrax. I don't really care about Hatebreed, but if they're there, cool, and be like back row, it's Black Label Society or Anthrax, or meet Smash Mouth. I'm going back row, Black Label Society and Anthrax. Not to be a dick, but
yeah, that's
I'm saying not to be a dick because if that softens the blow of all the shit I've been talking for the first like 20 minutes of the show.
So it's one of those ones. That was a funny like battle of the, I guess you would say, bands. Like you got the choice tonight, and you're either an Anthrax guy or you're a Smash Mouth guy. You got to make that decision. You can't be both.
It was actually kind of funny. There was one time because in San Francisco they had what's it called?
What was it? That big
Outside
concert?
Lands.
Yeah, Outside Lands.
So Outside Lands, and they would sometimes have really good lineups, but it was always just so fucking expensive, and always bring all the Coachella, wannabe Coachella kids and shit there. And I lived right by Golden Gate Park, so I would basically hear it. There's one time my roommate and I threw a party, and we were on the roof to our building, and Metallica and I think Kings of Leon were playing. Mm-hmm. And it was the weirdest thing. Depending on what side, they were playing at the same time. And depending on what side of the roof you were standing, you could basically hear just them. It was weird. It wasn't that wide of a roof. It was maybe like from one side of the roof to the other, this corner we were at. It was probably only 100 feet or something. But depending on what side you're at, like, oh, I can hear Metallica. Over here, I hear Kings of Leon. So most people were at the Metallica side.
Yeah, so you could choose your side on the roof and whatnot and so on. It's always funny how that kind of almost goes. Even that Anthrax one, like, if there was just that brief moment of like, oh, there's a little bit of like that, pause between the next track or something like that, you could almost hear like a wave of just a little bit of ska music coming over the soccer stadium that Anthrax was at. You could kind of hear it across the way because it wasn't that far apart from each other.
You just hear, and then the morning comes. Well, yeah. And then all of a sudden, like Zach Wild comes out. All right, enough of that shit.
Well, there was one part where I felt like it was one of the most like almost like distracting things at like a concert. Like, what do you look at? But it was almost so badass at the same time. There was a part where Anthrax was playing "I Am the Law" and the Judge Dredd song, and all of a sudden there was this dude getting thrown in the back of a paddy wagon who was like, the cops are all showing up and tossing and having to like restrain this guy as this is going on, and there's fireworks shooting off over at the same time.
So this was not like a stage thing. This was like a Motley Crue like thing. This is just some.
No. Some guy was just being like roughhousing or something like that, and the cops showed up, and you just saw him like whipping in the back behind there and pulling this guy out. I mean, it took like about like 8 cops to bring this guy down. It's just like, as I am the law,
just like the ultimate mosher. Like, all right, guys, look alive. Apparently, the suspect is going to be here, and this is the time. He'll look for the big divides. Look for the big divides. Okay, we need the riot gear. We need tasers. We lost 2 men last year. All right.
Well, I'm just surprised there wasn't like a guy dressed up as Judge Dredd like cosplaying in the eyes to be like, hold on a second, this is my moment. Give me that baton.
It's either that or it's just like or it's just one of those things like the cops are in, they're just like bumping their heads like, you know, fuck it, let's do it. You know, like, you're being too rough. Like, what? They just like,
give the guy in the Judge Dredd costume the baton. Just be like, well, just those police officers be like, you know what? Let's have this guy take him back to the police precinct too while he at it. How many times in life are we gonna get it where Judge Dredd can bring a guy in? I always love how like England's always like, you know, we wrote Judge Dredd as kind of like this, the guy who takes the law like almost too far and so on like that, but Americans love it. we were actually trying to make a joke about like the dirty hairiness of like America, but at the same time, America doesn't care. They like that sort of thing.
They didn't understand it's a satire.
No, they're like, damn, we need more Judge Dredd in life. If we had more Judge Dredd, everything would be fixed.
You know, I think the only thing is Judge Dredd didn't kill everybody. I think he should have shot more unarmed men. Like, oh, well, shit. Okay, how do we explain this?
I always feel like in Los Angeles, they really need to start making that city turn into mega city too, because there's never enough space down there. I'm like, you know, if you put some of those mega city buildings in here, I feel like we could fix some of this population issue down here.
I think there's that one Bill Burr bit where he says like, no one has the balls to say it. No politician has the balls to say, all right, look, here's the thing. 80% of us have to go. Okay, that's all it is to it. You know, you're never going to see a politician up on stage like, and if elected, I will let me finish. If elected, I will kill everyone in this room.
Starting with the cruise ship people first and foremost. But that's how I feel. I'm like, you know, that's every time I'm in Los Angeles, I always looking, why are there not that many tall buildings down here? This is if this is supposed to be one of the biggest cities, why does it have like less tall buildings than San Francisco? You know what I mean? Like, shit. There's like, I feel like Eureka has more tall buildings than LA does.
They just got like, I guess. Is that Hollywood Boulevard? I don't really know geography there that well.
It's just downtown LA is really the only place that has
where you have the tall buildings. Yeah,
that's like the only area that really has like tall buildings. It's like the second they're all in like the you know, let's be honest, you're not actually living in LA anymore. You're living in other towns that don't get the same name representation. But all those ones, it's like everything there. It's like everything's like a single story building. Like once in a blue moon, you see like a 2-story building. You're like, why? Why is it not like if everybody had a 2-story building, if not even a 3-story building? Like think about how much stuff we can conserve in here. You could have you could do that classic thing where you have business below, apartments above. Like
there's that one really tall building, which is I think one of the many Scientology buildings right there, not far from the Scum and Villainy Cantina, which is probably like it filled with filing cabinets of all like of David Miscavige's sex crimes or some shit. You know, we need a building that big to fill it. You know.
I was literally down there recently to go visit Laura's family, and then also me and Buddy went to the Whiskey A Go Go to go see Winger. But beforehand, we were on like an eat fest, just going to different restaurants, and he's all like, "Hey, we should go on the Scientology tour." I'm like, "Well, you know what's going to happen? We're going to go in there thinking that it's going to be fun and funny, and then next thing you know, we'll be coming out like 3 days later, and we have a suit on for some reason, and now we are the guy standing out in front trying to bring new people in." That's how you get a promotion at that place, is you have to convert somebody else in there, and then you don't have to be the guy standing out front anymore, and now you get to go up the ranks. But how you do it is you got to bring someone in, and they don't know how they get transformed. It's like the Men in Black almost, and next thing you know, you've just been not vaporized, but flashed, and here you are living a new life.
I feel like that's how it happens. People go in there like, it's gonna be so fucking funny, and they go and they like, wow, my phaetons or my thetans or whatever the fuck it is, there's an alien inside me. Whoa, wait, what? You know, and then it just kind of, and then like I remember hearing like with some podcast, I don't remember which one, but it was a podcast. They said like we went to do the Scientology thing one time, and right when they wanted our email and our number and all that, that's where we put it down. But we just wanted to get as far as we can without actually giving them any proper information. And we left, and then like they gave us a bit like, all right, if you want to leave, you can leave, but we think you're really missing out. We really think you should share. Like, oh, no, thank you. It's okay. You know. And they go, and they were just like, don't say nothing. Don't say that. They're walking around, and they realize like they're basically kind of being tailed, or they're like people on like multiple blocks, kind of just like like acting like they didn't see them. So like people just following or listening in to see if they're talking any shit or see if they're with any organization or anything like that.
That's so funny. I just remember also in San Francisco, every time I wanted to go to the subway on the way home, there was like that Scientology building literally above the subway. So you had to always talk to that dude to go into the subway pretty much. And every single time I had to kind of give him like, hey, do you know what you're doing in life? Yes, I know what I'm doing in life. I know what I want in life. And I want a goddamn Subway sandwich right now. Oh, okay, you seem like you know what you want. Yeah, it pretty well does seem like I want. I got $5.
Tom Cruise gave you that Subway sandwich.
Oh, well, that'd be a little bit different. Tom Cruise, if you could get Tom Cruise to come down here right now and eat Subway with me, I'll consider it. Oh, you can't do that?
Impossible down on a wire,
Yeah, exactly. One of those ones.
Oh shit! If we were doing that, like, all right, like, obviously we can't get Tom. We could probably get some of the lower levels, though. We could probably, because that's the thing. It's all so fucked up about it is because they have the people that like this guy, like Tom, can go places and do shit. I'm not sure. I think he became one after the fact, after he was famous, but I don't know that for a fact. But then you get the people like you have the ability to go up, but they never go up. They keep the same position and they just make them feel like shit. Like you're fucking up. That's why you're still at this fucking level. You'll never go to like space. You'll never go to like, to fucking Yavin 4 or wherever the fuck they go,
If you think about it, it's like most corporate jobs. You think you can go up, but you can't.
To a point, yeah.
Yeah. You could go up to like where they play the game where it's like, okay, we make them feel slightly good for the moment, but they don't realize that they're just a cog in the machine.
They'll always be in that same spot. I mean, there's the exceptions, but majority of the time, yeah, definitely. Yeah. But you've actually had something going recently. You just got something finished.
Oh yeah, I got my new Pizza Boys. Pizza Boys represent. You got the East California shirt on. I meant to wear that one when I was down at the Whiskey a Go-Go, and I totally spaced out on bringing that shirt because I was like, damn it, I brought a shirt that only has Pizza Boys on the front, and I'm in the front row. Nobody but Kip Winger's going to see this.
Just you have this whole thing about people like throwing shit on stage. They're getting mad. You should have thrown like an issue of Pizza Boys up there.
Yeah, dude. No, I kid you not, dude. At the Whiskey a Go-Go, that was like the best audience I've ever seen. Like, I feel like his buddy was kind of saying it seems like it's a lot of the same old people that show up. So probably people have a lot more respect for the music at a place like that. It's not just, average Joe comes in, gets 20 beers in him beforehand, and then decides he's going to start like ripping his shirt off and stage diving and, being a maniac. Like there was like no pushing. Everyone's like, we're here for the music. It's very solid. Granted also me and Buddy were probably about the two youngest people in that concert, but
you said it was Winger?
It was Winger, from the 80s, that band.
Yeah, I know them from the 80s. That's about all I know. I'm sure if I heard one of their songs, like, yeah, them,
Yeah, so, and they were really awesome. But as I said, like, me and Buddy stood, like, front stage, or, like, at the very front of the stage the whole time. Not a single person pushed, no, yeah, it was totally calm and totally awesome, So that kind of made it a very nice experience there. But I guess in this roundabout way of getting back to Pizza Boys and all that stuff, I got issue 14 finally done after what felt like it was like 6 months. I don't know if it was exactly that long. I think it was maybe a little bit less than that, but sometimes it's one of those ones. It's that weird thing that like I feel like the better I get at drawing and the faster I get at drawing, then it becomes this conundrum where like you get faster at drawing, but then you get better at drawing. So then it almost gets back to the same speed, if not slower.
Well, I guess because do you find when you say you get better at drawing, you just find like, how do I put it? Like you're better at it, but at the same time, you want to put that extra bit of detail in here, that extra bit of detail there, and that kind of stacks up after a while.
Yeah, I think that's sort of it. It's like it's probably all in the details game and so on like that, or just the small things you're like, oh, I kind of got better at toning now. So then you start adding more tones to certain things and so on like that, and that sometimes takes up its sweet time because toning's like that one that I feel most people don't understand that process because I just don't think a whole lot of people ever do it, especially in America. Toning's not used very often, and I almost consider it's kind of the equivalent of like coloring. Like I feel like it takes just as long to tone stuff as it does to like color things, even though I know you're not using nearly as many, but in coloring, you could almost kind of, I don't know, I feel like coloring is almost faster, not by much, but like, because, okay, this color here, pop, 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 pop. Okay, now the whole thing's sort of filled out. Where toning, you got to sort of figure out how you're going to balance that whole page and so on. And some of that kind of stuff sometimes is always a good, how are we going to balance it here and use it there and so on like that. So I think all those things start stacking up in the time process.
finding that proper substitute, like, oh, this is meant to be blood right here, but that's too similar to actual black over here. Something kind of like that, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's like when it does come to shading, I always kind of do that thing where just because you kind of go, okay, this thing's color tone is like say 15% or 25%, doesn't always mean that necessarily, like in black and white, it doesn't always need to be like, that doesn't mean that it's always that, like that's always its color. Like, depending on the circumstances, it can kind of vary, in different panels. So it just needs to be, in a sense, a shade color. It doesn't always need to be necessarily the exact same. Like it is a color in a strange way. I mean, certain things I do kind of keep them just so I know what it is from panel to panel to panel, but there is a little bit more leeway, I think, as far as shading kind of goes, instead of holding it to like too much of a strict, rigid kind of way to go about it.
How many issues is this arc? Because this is for folks who don't know, I mean, who maybe read Pizza Boys, but haven't kept up with the last two. Mm-hmm. This is your first continual arc, and it's also a little more action oriented, but there still is Pizza Boys style comedy and whatnot in it.
Yeah.
Is this how many issues is this? Is this going to be 6 or 8 arcs? I mean, 6 or 8 issues.
I pretty much had about 7 issues written, so right down there in the center. And if I really want to, I could probably sum it up to 6, but it felt like that was going to be just cutting it just a fraction too short. But then I could also probably just extend it slightly to 8 to make it have a balanced number, I guess you would say, and to and just not stretch it out in any ways that would drag it, but just so it doesn't feel like maybe it's kind of somewhat rushed at the end. As I said, I kind of have it written. I got at least, I think I wrote 5 of the issues completely out so far, and then I have just notes for the next part because I was like, well, you know what? No reason to totally write this out until I get to that part as the time comes. I just have all the ideas sort of there, but yeah, definitely one of those ideas that sounds good on paper, like most things in life, but then you're like, oh, this really commits me for a good chunk of time. And that's almost the things that I contemplate in like about the last year probably, but is that one like, how do I speed this process up yet still retain my style of artwork, in the long run? Because, and that's the thing is I just kind of go like, I just don't want to have it where like each one of these issues is starting to take 5 to 6 months to come out. Like that's almost too long of a process and so on. It's like, and I don't mean just necessarily too long, like, oh, but people will get it. It's indie comics. Like, well, no, I'm not talking about that. It's a too long process for me. It keeps me away from doing anything else for like a couple of years by that standard. So I'm almost kind of going like, well, what is the best way to keep that going? But like speed up the process or at least cut the time, yet not, like still retaining like what it is. And the couple of ideas that I've thrown up or thought about is that I could write it and draw it, but then have somebody ink it, which would save me like almost half the amount of time. Because I feel, in my opinion, the inking takes much longer than all the other stuff. Like I probably spend more time inking than I do writing, drawing, and lettering. So if I had someone doing that, like it'd be almost like as I'm drawing it, they could be inking it and flip flop back and forth. Like anything, you'd have to get somebody who is totally right for the project and so on. And then I also have that kind of thing. I have that fear of like, well, when I get that point where I look at some of the artwork and go, I could do this better here. Let me take this thing back. And then I start like dicking with the inking and so on to add in, some more things there. But at the same time, I definitely think that would at least cut the process down in half. Or the other option is to do it manga style, where you have somebody who sort of fills in extra details, is the best way to sort of say it. And maybe they just, you draw the core of the background, but then they fill in all the extra parts there. So you can kind of focus more on the story flowing part. I guess that's sort of more similar to even like animation style, but that's kind of the manga way that they do stuff to get their flowing going, is they don't split it between inking and penciling. They split it between, okay, here's the guy drawing pretty much the core stuff. Here's the guy drawing generally background and details and extra things like that. And that guy's not going to get, and in manga stuff, those guys get no credit. So you never know really how many people have worked on it. They're the uncredited, like, poor chaps that like sit in the room with the manga artist. And
well, it's also like, I guess that not the lack of credit part, but I mean, this one's a little bit more manga influenced than other issues. So I guess that could work, that benefit to some way. But at the exact same time, I see what you mean though, because now that you got this new style, but it's taken X amount of time and you're kind of committed to this version of the story. It also, I can understand. I mean, as somebody who's been taking forever to get his comic done, and that's finally having some headway to an extent. I mean, it's not going to be today, it's not going to be tomorrow, but that's in the works. That legit in the works. I'm not just saying, oh, I got a storyboard and I got a script. It's legit in the works.
Mm-hmm.
That said, though, it's one of those things where I can understand the whole thing about being, because the part of it's more sitcom oriented. It's more single story. So the idea of having this long ongoing thing, which could take up to 2 years possibly, or a year,
Oh God, if it was only a year, that wouldn't be such a big deal. I would do it all myself if it was just a year. I'm just afraid it's going to take, like, if I'm only at 2 now and it's been almost a year just for those 2, like, because, then there's, beyond just the drawing jobs and writing jobs, of course, then there's putting the book together, editing it, getting all that kind of stuff. All those things that, always seem to take a couple of weeks just post thing. It is just get that point where it's like, man, what'd be nice is a teamwork kind of effort and so on like that, which it's like the one where when you watch like any other project, you go, oh, look at that nice team there. Oh, there's the 3 of them. Or like if you watch like some of those like a business venture things, or I was going through John Romero, the creator of Doom. He just had a book that came out. Like there was that Doom book beforehand, but there was like a biography one written about the guys. But he just wrote one just in the last couple of months or month or so. I got it like right when I saw it pop up, where he just kind of goes through his kind of tales of all that kind of stuff and so on. And there's that one point like that Doom one where it's just like, it's the 4 of the guys working together and that's all we need. And we just got pizza and Diet Coke to fuel the night. And here we go. Let's do some programming, chaps. And you're like, man, that sounds nice, man. I wish I had a cool room like that where when we take breaks, we play Street Fighter 2 and F-Zero. And ordering pizza late at night so you can keep working. And even though you're doing the death schedule of 12 hours a day, that's okay because it's what you want to do.
And you're at the point like, okay, guys, that was 8 rounds. Back to the grind. Okay, fellas. Everyone just goes back and simultaneously just sits down.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's put on the Don Dockin right now. Get the tunes going. But yeah, there's that sort of thing where it's just like, I guess it's the other thing too. I remember I thought about it, like there was that period where I was like putting together a Pizza Boys issue and so on. And it's just like that one where you're literally drawing a story of a bunch of friends hanging out and having a good time together. And then you're like sitting alone by yourself. You're like, oh boy.
I remember this feeling.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's like, boy, sure must be nice to hang out with people. And you get to that point, instead of being just alone here, just working away, one of those ones.
Well, not to get too, because I've been happy since then, of course, but I'll say it wasn't the last. The last time I think the actual, not that we go around calling ourselves, hey guys, we're the Pizza Boys, but I guess all the characters based on the Pizza Boys in the comic were all in the same room together, was my wedding. So there was a bit of a moment of kind of like, oh wow, when's the next time this is gonna happen?
Well, that was the thing. I remember when me and Kyle were driving back because we went down there together, and there was a very melancholy, bittersweet feeling after that point where with both of us, and we just kind of like that one where it's like,
you mean the bachelor party?
Yes, that one. Or yeah, I guess that one exactly. And it was just that one where it's like, as fun as that was almost kind of sad in the long run because this probably will never happen again. It was one of those moments where it's just like, oh yeah, like that was kind of, it's like the ending of an era, like one of those moments in a movie.
Off he goes, like Pearl Jam just starts to play
there
on the radio. Like the radio's off. Why is it playing? Yeah.
'Cause he's riding on a motorbike and the toughest win.
It's not turning off. What's going on?
Oh, God, there's Eddie Vedder right there. He's on a motorbike right next to us.
with an acoustic guitar. Why can we hear that acoustic guitar so clearly?
He's got the power of Eddie. Oh, God, Eddie Money's coming up on the other side. Go faster. Why is there all these Eddies out here?
No, Ed and Eddie, what the fuck are they doing? No,
but yeah, there is those kind of moments like that where you're just like, oh yeah,
I have that like because it didn't cross my mind till after it was over because everyone like had a good weekend and that, and then I had to go to work the next day or something. Then I'm like, okay, cool, see you guys. All right, see you at the wedding, cool. And then like, oh my god, it just
the door slowly closes and the camera starts rolling back on you, and it gets wider and wider and wider, and you're just standing there with in an empty room, and it's in silent.
My wife is like, why are you doing that? I'm just alone. Like you're not alone. I'm right here. Like it's man bonding. It's man bonding.
It's not the same. I feel like you guys. It's not the same. The love between a man and another man is just something that you can't understand, and you just never will. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
That may be mansplaining, but it is what it is, woman.
It is what it is, and it's a feeling that you get deep down inside, right next to the wiener, but not exactly the wiener. It's kind of weird. I don't know how to describe its origin.
3 centimeters to the left, exactly.
So it's a gay thing. No, nothing gay whatsoever. You know what I mean?
3 centimeters to the left of the wiener. All right, not at the base.
No, not at all. But yeah, no, it is that weird one. It's almost like it's like the thing. It's like now I think about. I'm like, you know what it's like I need to find a way to get a team back. Maybe it's even a Blues Brothers like thing where it's like we need to get the band back together somehow, some way. One of those, because that's almost like Blues Brothers is. You don't think about it, but that movie is like the story of like a midlife crisis and just trying to figure out how to bring everybody back together.
You know what? One how I know that like I didn't go through with it. One how I know that like shit, I'm close to a midlife crisis. The other day I was just I was at
the Porsche dealership.
No, I'm not there. I don't got the money for that. Are you fucking kidding me? No.
But I had the dreams.
No, I'm not. I'm not one of those people who's like wowed by like. I guess I'm like. I see like a car. Like, I just need a functioning car that looks decent enough. Like I don't mean by decent enough as in like slick leather interior. I mean just gets me to point A to point B, and it doesn't look like a driving pile of shit. Because I look at something like a Porsche, and I'm like, well, you realize how many like Sonic figures I could have bought with that. You realize how many like Rolling Stones albums I could have got with that, So it's kind of like that's where my mind fucking goes. So,
well, that's how I feel. Even like when I look at a car, I'm like, is it comfortable? Does the AC and the heater work? And does it drive? Yeah, that's all I need.
Yeah,
I don't even care how it looks like on the outside. As long as it's operational, it's like one of those ones, and it's comfortable. That's it. Comfortable is the only key thing I need.
Oh my! What's the price tag? Holy shit! Are you kidding me? Do you realize how many coffee table books on bands I can get about that shit?
Yeah. So. Shit, I can't even load that stuff up in this car. Where am I going to put it? If I got a new bookshelf, it's not going to fit in there.
Exactly. So that's kind of like where my mind goes. So, but I know that I'm approaching a midlife crisis because the other day I was flipping through. I said the Sonic figures thing for a reason, but I was flipping through like through like Instagram, and I saw like somebody who does like fun dioramas of figures, but it kind of does it in kind of like a contemporary kind of way. So he did like the 90s style Ninja Turtles, but they're all 90s movie Ninja Turtles, but they're all like in a McDonald's, and they're having the Mario Brothers 3 Happy Meals. But the thing is, and that sounds very kind of like member berries, and it is, but the guy put so much effort into every little detail. I couldn't help but be like, oh my God, like respect the level of artwork and craftsmanship and the angling. Like it actually looked really good. Then it just looked like some stupid Facebook, like 2015 bullshit of like, if you know what this toy is and you had an awesome childhood, not that horse shit. I mean, like this guy clearly loves what he's doing. I don't remember his name and I'm not reaching for my phone right now, but anyway, and he had a couple of things like that. So like, that's really cool. And for a minute it was like, I bet I could probably make some cool dioramas of the things I have. I would probably have to do some crafting and make some shit. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm working a fucking comic book right now. I'm trying to learn another language. I'm trying to get my fucking driver's license in another country. Why the fuck am I even considering about, like, maybe I can do like a fun Sonic the Hedgehog themed diorama and there's like shadow and chaos. What the fuck am I doing?
Well, you know what that becomes like? That is literally the equivalent of like I guess you would say even our generation of the guy building the giant railroad track in his attic. That is exactly what that is. That is 100%. Because I feel I really have kind of
the
slot cars. Because realistically, I think that especially for men, not necessarily women, because women can kind of jump ship on like the things that they like. But there is still a lot of them that do it too. But I feel men for sure definitely have that thing that I think every man wants to appeal to his 10-year-old boy self. Like literally, even if he doesn't say it, it is so true, because you could practically go to any older guy's house and somehow, some way, you will find whatever he loved as 10 years old circled somewhere, whether it be race cars, whether it be a train set, whether it be music memorabilia, whether it be, even just weird novelty like toy things that like just happen to be in there. There's that kind of appealing thing. And now we just see it a lot more because you can it's almost easier to set up your Sonic the Hedgehog 1993 set or set up your Ninja Turtles like 1987 characters, like, and you have all this access to all this cool stuff that just exists practically everywhere now.
Well, you say something like, when you get older, you just want to start getting all the stuff you liked when you were 10. I mean, anybody watching the video version of this podcast can look at either of our rooms right here and just like, I don't need to jump to you don't got to jump to your 60s, dude.
No, that's what I mean. It doesn't take much, but that's what
I feel like. Thing. Yeah.
You get to that point where like you start creating it, like even if it's subconsciously, and it can happen in other ways too. Even people can do it in different strange ways, but yeah, I think that's sort of what kind of happens there, and so on. And then the other thing I want to say is, I have that same thing too, where like when I start thinking of other projects and you go, man, this sounds cool. Like I could try this out. So, and I've learned I got to do that thing where I go, no, pump the brakes. Here's the thing. You can do whatever the hell you want in life. That is for sure. But you can only do like one or two things. So you better pick them specifically what you want. And there's not enough time to do everything else. And I always have to sometimes remind myself where it's like, no. You're doing a comic book. That's all you get now. Do the comic book and the podcast, and that's it. No more. Don't think of any other projects. You're not doing videos. I know you want to do that every once in a while, but this is what it is. This is what you chose, and this is like where you're at now, and this is what you got to stick with. It's like there's just not enough time. Like once in a blue moon, you'll get that hankering. Like, yeah, what if I wrote another musical album, or not musical, but like music album? And you're like, it's like, that's just going to get in the way right now. I hate to sort of say it. There's not enough time to play all that stuff. Like in a perfect world, you would have all that time where you're like, I'm going to play, an hour of guitar, an hour of drawing, an hour of video making, and all that kind of stuff. But we all know that's not going to happen like that. So you got to pick your battles in the sense of what you really, truly want.
There was a minute like when COVID, we had our first lockdown. Because at the time, I hated my day job. I flat out hated my day job. And it was basically early COVID, despite all the kind of like everything going on in the world, there was that moment of like, I got a day off. And, by the time I was kind of like, I was basically off for like a month and a half. And I really fucking needed that. I had no idea how badly I needed that. And during that time, though, I was even though I was really enjoying it, I was partially stressed because I was like, holy shit, I don't want to go back. Like you get that thing of like the concept of going back just seems so fucking like hard and like foreign. Like, oh my God, this is what it is. What? I have to fucking go back to that fucking shit job. Are you shitting me? So like, I got to find something now. Like, what can I do? And then immediately, I don't know why this popped in my head is like something that could possibly, I want to make money right away, but in time it could build up. I was like, oh my God, designer toys on Etsy. Like I have no history in like that at all. But I was like, oh shit, like I get it, like, because I just saw like something like, oh yeah, man, like here's how I made this designer toy or whatever, and it was just some kind of like, like that kid robot type shit, I was like, I could probably make something like that. And I was immediately looking into like, okay, how much does resin cost? I'm doing the math. Like, okay, between shipping something this size, how much would that cost? I can maybe do that. And then the stuff came in. I tried making something. Of course, it's always harder than you initially expect it. And people like, I had my roommates like, Ryan, what the fuck are you doing? What's this? My test run was this is not the Octorok. This is one I bought, but I did a test Octorok, just seeing if I could make one. And like, hey, so what's this octopus thing? Like, oh, it's just a project. Don't worry about it. It's just a project. Okay, I think that lockdown's been doing something to them, you know. Like, so for literally a few 2 weeks of the lockdown, I was like seriously considering like maybe I can be like, you know, like, because at the time I was living in Oakland, maybe it could be like artsy Oakland guy and get some hand tattoos. I can get like a septum piercing, and then, you know, just make all this shit in our backyard. Yeah, I can probably do that. Yeah, you know, Vice will probably do like a little 5-minute story on me if it picks up. Yeah, you know, just kind of like that, like just getting all like, hopefully, you know.
Yeah, I just get all that point. I know. I just remember like when everybody said like, "Oh man, when we had all this free time like that and so on like that." I just remember like I realized that my life was completely the exact same. The only thing I didn't do was like, "Oh, I can't go to the movie theaters." Boy, I guess that's the only thing I go out of the way to do. Wow, I do spend a lot of time just working on stuff, and nothing really changed except for I was just angry because I can't go to the movie theater. Damn it. You know, but it is that thing. It's like, yeah, every once in a while you get like, I do that same thing too, where I get these ideas for like certain projects that I kind of want to try out and so on like that. And, you know, once in a blue moon, I will say there's nothing wrong with like, when it comes to creativity, there is something to be said about slightly getting into something for a moment, sort of the reboost your kind of like creativity, imagination, and what you truly are working on. You know, it's that kind of the equivalent of almost like, say you're making a comic book. Well, you go and you read a couple of novels, and somehow you'll get just a brand new, fresh kind of like idea on how to like run with some ideas and so on like that. There's something to be said there when you kind of cross pollinate with like different multimedia things. But the one thing it's like I just learned is that you can't do the thing where, okay, I'm working on this comic book, and then like all of a sudden you're like, hey, I should start making some movies all of a sudden like that, you know, or it's even just small things too, where you're like, oh, I'm just gonna make a couple extra videos or something like that to add on the channel and whatnot. And then next thing you know, you put these videos together and you're like, wow, there was 6 hours I could have been drawing or putting together, you know what I mean? And then it makes it feel like you've just now gotten behind on what you needed to really be doing, you know, to do a side project that, you know, is just there for side projectness. Not saying that they don't have a purpose, but, you know.
Sometimes side projects can actually just be that break you need to avoid kind of like spinning your wheels creatively. And so it kind of goes either way. Like I know what you mean, because there are that times where I feel like, oh, this is just a distraction, or this is something that's not as important as this over here, because that's definitely the case sometimes. But sometimes I think we just need that thing to distract us or pull us away, so we come back to this thing with a fresh set of eyes. Like there's a point where I was having trouble with some part of my comic, and I was listening to some audiobooks, and I was like, maybe I can write this thing as a fucking novel. Maybe I can do that. But then I was thinking, like, so much of it is like, I don't know, why would I suddenly just decide to make this thing a novel? I mean, maybe if that becomes a really last resort, but I don't read enough novels to like, I think I could write like a little fun, like, bullshit novelette or something like that, but not like a big, like, you know, for what I want to do. Yeah. No, I don't think so. What am I? So you almost I almost have that very quick, like, post-nut clarity of like, oh wait, no, what am I doing? No, this isn't gonna. Yeah, you think about it for a minute, you kind of get into it for a day or two, and then you're like, nah, no.
Well, that's what too. I'll think about stuff like that, and then you go in those ideas, and you go, well, wait a second. Now I don't want to be that asshole that like is like. Did you see it like in all the other mediums where like someone's like, I'm not really into comic books, but I thought that would be an easy way for me to get into the movie industry. Like, yeah, you don't want to be that guy.
They made a comic solely as a thing to be sold to somebody so it can get a Netflix show or something like that.
Yep, exactly. Because I know it's like, you'll see that every once in a while certain people that like, that's almost more what guides them towards. They're not really into comics first and foremost. And I feel like you wouldn't want to do the same thing to novels in a sense. If you aren't 100% into novels, it's not saying that you couldn't write one at some point, you know, just to try something different, but Yeah, you don't want to be necessarily being that person who's like, I just did that medium because it seemed like it was like less work than this other one that I really wanted to do. And then that almost seems like such an insult to the people that do it. Like, you're like, yeah, go, you know what? Yeah, less work, huh?
Yeah, well, I guess it's also more. It's not even. I mean, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, I am more of a comic fan than I am like a novel fan. But that said, like, I don't. Even though I do enjoy a good novel every so often, I don't read them as frequently as I read comics, and I feel like I know more about comics than I did novel, and I think that would show up in the work. So no one's probably really that impressed. And plus, the thing I'm working on is martial arts adjacent, and a martial arts novel could be fun, but I mean, I think a martial arts thing is far more interesting when it's visual. So it's just something to that effect. You know what I mean? Because I'll be honest, anytime I read a novel and there's an action scene going on, that's never really the part that gets me. It's it's like the tension or the conversations that pull me in a novel. And though this thing does has some tense conversations and it is very story driven, it's still, I want the fight scenes to really stand out, and I don't think a novel could really do that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so, because that's not really, yeah, action in a novel is not the if you're basing everything on that, that's definitely not the most exciting medium for it. I feel like novels are great for like all the extra details and character discovery and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes even like small world building and things like that. But yeah, when it comes down to like when you get those novels where it's like, here's like 15 pages of action, sometimes you can get almost like lost in that.
Like I love like books by Chuck Palahniuk.
Oh, Palahniuk.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's Palahniuk or Palahniuk. I hear it pronounced different ways all the time, but yeah, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some stories I read that were adventures that still had like, but I mean, I was working through a sci-fi Western a little bit ago, but it worked very much like a Sergio Leone thing with the action. Built up all the tension, happens really quickly, and then we're on to the next thing. It was just the sci-fi setting and all that kind of stuff, Yeah. So, so I think just something like that, it would show. So sometimes you think of like, well, how can I get this thing done quicker? That's not always, it goes without saying, that's not always the best solution, probably. I know I didn't try it, but at the same time, I got a feeling it wouldn't be the best solution.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's kind of like the way to go. I think it's a time and a place for all kinds of stuff. But yeah, there is something to be said about picking what you truly want and really giving that all your effort. It's almost even kind of like the downfall signs when you try too many different things. Though it sounds nice on paper,
master done kind of thing.
Yeah, you start spreading yourself thin on everything like that. And that's something that I've always kind of questioned my entire life anyways, is have I spread myself too thin on everything maybe? Because I always get interested in stuff. I want to learn anything I can learn about the multimedia kind of process. But in that, part, it's like one of those ones where like, a little bit about a lot of stuff, but sometimes you kind of go, would it be better if you just focus hard on, one or two or three things instead of like a variety of things? It's kind of like, I guess a good music analogy would be like, is it best to be the guy who's just extraordinarily good at like one thing, like say like the guitar or the keyboard or something like that, or to be the guy who could, it's like, well, I can play the drums, I can play guitar, I can play the saxophone, I can play a little bit of this and that, but I'm kind of like, just at the bare bones of every single one of these ones.
Well, it is kind of interesting because we both have kind of like we've never been exactly into the same mediums, but a similar trajectory, because you're a musician and you did a lot of you've dabbled a little bit of everything. So to be fair on your end, if you were to do like a media project, like a video or a movie, you at least have like previous things you've worked on can contribute to that. You can make the music yourself. Like whenever back to when we used to animate and back when we used to do like live action stuff, there'd usually be a few songs in there that were made just by you. So that was something where maybe your music could have helped and aided that. And your past in making film, though maybe it didn't happen as soon as we all hoped. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe now sometimes it'd be cooler. Like, man, I wish I learned this sooner. But maybe the fact that you did so much film work in the past kind of gave you more of a cinematic eye. So now you know what you want to use for Pizza Boys and other comic projects you have.
Yeah, and I definitely think that is true because that was the one thing when starting comic books. I felt like I don't have this drawing experience that a lot of other people have, because realistically, I just started drawing in my 20s. That's why I always tell people when they tell me they can't draw, and I go, no, 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 you can totally draw. And my drawing literally just forms from Ryan's drawings in a sense, because that's all I was doing was I was like, okay, I could just draw like Ryan and fill in extra little parts here and there, and that just kind of spawned from that point. But I felt like the one thing I had up on other people who were better at drawing than me was I was like, well, I at least know how a story flows and I know how scenes should look and where to place things. Like I felt like I had all that from us making movies for so long, is that like all that kind of stuff. I felt like at least if anything, I got all this in the bag. All I need to do is continuously learn the drawing parts and so on and stack that on top of like all the previous knowledge I have. So I do think that all that knowledge still comes together and does help. And definitely there is something to be said there, so I'm not saying that it's not bad to learn a whole lot of stuff, but sometimes I feel like there is that thing of focusing. But one thing, there was one guy I knew once back in the day, his name is Brian with a Y, real nice guy. I remember I was telling him that, well, going over like, okay, I got all this wide variety of stuff in movie making and different, like I learned everything I wanted to learn from lighting to acting, to camera, sound, editing, blah, 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 blah. And he's all like, well, you know what you just described to me? You just sound like you're the guy who'd make the perfect producer because you knew everything about each thing and you could technically talk to every single person who was the master of the one field and you would know what's going on. And I was like, you know what? I never thought of it that way, but maybe that's how I was almost gearing myself towards. And then ever since that, I always kind of thought, I'm like, you know what? That would have been kind of the interesting one is to do that thing where you pursue the producing aspect of certain things almost sometimes over other stuff.
Because to be fair, sometimes because you were always a little bit more, you always were more technical than me. I mean, still sometimes when I have trouble, like I'm like a grandpa calling his grandson, like, how do I get this goddamn file to upload? How do I lower the DPI on the thing? So even when we were making films and movies, you would still be like, okay, no, I see what you mean. This would be a good scene. But fact is, this is gonna be too fucking hard to shoot. Think of how many people we have to fucking get for this. Think of how we have to wrangle people up. Think of how and it's gonna be you or me filming it, and then we are both in this scene playing our characters. So how the fuck are we gonna do that? Are we gonna ask Phil to hold the fucking camera? So yeah. It was like, so you were always pretty good at being able to kind of like wrangle it in and being kind of like being realistic once we actually got to the process of trying to make this thing.
Yeah, well, I will say I think that always has been a good skill set is like I do have that like, okay, this sounds cool, but let's be honest, what can we do with what we have? Like, let's go a little bit simpler and, work on it that way and so on like that and kind of stack things up. And yeah, I do think that like there is something to be said. It's like I feel it's like it would be kind of fun to try a movie making process where like if you were just a straight up one job like producer person and to see how that could kind of wrangling go and just try that aspect out of just being like, I'm gonna dial this thing all in for these guys who are making this film and get it all together. That also sounds like that could be the more stressful job, of course, but.
Well, then I could understand at the same time because you think about because I know the stereotype is like a movie producer being like, here's what's gonna fucking happen, So after a while, after you probably have a couple in that guy's defense, like in the defense of all the Joel Silvers and just like loud asshole like producers, there's probably got to be a couple of times like, yeah, let's be experimental. Let's just see what happens. It's art, man. Let's see what happens. You're like, Joel, that fucked up. That fucking thing tanked. And then after that, like, no, only big celebrities. Like, why? Because I just got my asshole ripped wide open by like the studio head. Okay, that's fucking why. Okay, you don't have to talk to him. Yeah, I'm glad you want to follow your fucking dreams, but I want to keep my fucking job. And don't be wrong, there are those. I'm not giving like slack to every shitty film or every shitty film producer, but after a couple of those, that's why you probably go, fuck it, another Marvel movie, sure.
Well, yeah, especially when you get some of those, even great directors out there. Some of them just literally have no money management skills, And I could see why some of them are like, it's like Francis Ford Coppola, great director, but that dude just always kept bankrupting himself his entire career, practically, And even though he turned out some real stellar movies, of course, I love them a lot. Apocalypse Now is one of my favorites, and so on. Godfather, all that stuff. But you could just sort of see as a producer, you'd be like, this fucking guy, like, has no idea what the hell he's doing. He thinks, blowing more money is going to fix something. You know what I mean? He thinks that, like, you got a hole in the bottom of the ship. If you just tape some more money down there, it's going to fix this hole. It's just more water's just going to come in. Like,
Robert Evans, more money, throw it. Just throws him like, shit. I don't know. Robert, now. Just like throws him like a wad. He's just like plugging it
in the hole, Or it's like when Star Wars did really good, Francis Ford Coppola just sent a letter to like George, like on Apocalypse Now. He's like, George, need more money now.
Is this written on a Post-it note? Yeah, he ran out of money for actual paper.
Yeah. One of those ones, and or you just see certain directors when like there's that moment that like a lot of directors sort of have too, where I think it's just like you do good, you have your kind of indie films or you have your student films, then you get your kind of big success one, and then you get that there's always that moment I think a lot of people get where like, oh shit, I fucking know what I'm doing, it's just all gonna work out, it's gonna be fantastic. I mean, even the best of the directors had that, like Steven Spielberg on 1941, somehow old Steven there found a way to really blow some money and not get a movie kind of going properly and just run into trouble after trouble after trouble, and then have an issue of making studios just like bleed cash.
I guess that also depends on what. I mean, I guess it's something it says over time. Because you get those movies where they are a bomb then, they're a bomb now, and maybe they have a cult following, but they're this thing that kind of like never really got a big return on investment. Maybe it did by this point, but all those people have different jobs now or are dead. Yeah. Or you get those ones where you made this thing, it fucking tanked, but now it's so well respected and some people look to it. Like was Apocalypse Now, is that a movie that did make its money real, or is that one that was more respected down the line?
No, that one did make its money. That's one of those movies where it cost an arm and a leg, and it took 4.5 years or whatever to put together. It's technically even longer if you think about how long it sat around as a script form and so on. Yeah, but that one did. That's like one of those ones that got lucky, because that movie could have been a very like accident prone waiting to happen. And it's time. This is the thing that always kind of bothers me of a lot of times movies though, is like time goes on. So many of those movies, like they trickle in cash every single day. Till the end of time almost, they're trickling in cash. Or I guess till the end of time or till the end of the copyright runs out, they trickle in cash every single day, pretty much, even if it's not much. But they never take that into account. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so let's just say a movie cost $50 million to make. It made $100 million at the box office when it came out. Well, they don't think about, like, as time has gone on, it's probably made another couple $100 million just video sales, streaming, international, yada, yada, yada. There's all these other things that merchandising, all this extra things that kind of come into play, that make a movie, even if it is a movie. It's like Waterworld. Waterworld's a perfect example of one where they always talk about, like, oh, it bombs. It's like, no, it made its money back, and then it made more money in home video market and, being played on TBS and all those kind of places. And so it actually did legitimately good in the long run. It just had that little bit of a rough start.
It didn't have that massive appeal they hoped it would. But then sometimes you also get that thing like, well, by that point, like, well, this guy got fired between here and there, so he never got well, the DVD sales, no, fuck you. That was 10 years ago. No one gives a shit about this director's cut edition now, But like, yeah, sometimes then you get the ones though. So you get those ones where it's like, where people view it as a failure and maybe it has a cult following, but then you get the ones where it might have a little bit of a cult following, but it's also a well-respected movie. You get something like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, or Once Upon a Time in the West, or I know two very different movies, or even
like Scott Pilgrim, Once Upon a Time in the Northeast.
Once Upon a Time in the Northeast, yeah. Once Upon a Time in the Northeast, or like God, there's another one I had in my head a second ago that I'm just totally drawing a blank on. But there, you get those movies where they bomb hard when they come out, but then in time they're a Blade Runner. In time, like they're really well respected, and people often refer to them, and they become one of the most like referenced or inspirational movies for people. You know.
Yeah, Citizen Kane, to add another one on there.
Yeah, Citizen Kane, that's probably one of the best prime examples, one that tanked a fucking studio. I'm like, look, but it forever changed cinema. That'd be nice, the studio is fucking here. Well, the movie's still here. Yeah, but our fucking jobs aren't. Warner Brothers took that shit, okay?
Yeah, so, no more RKO.
Just think of what it did for cinema. Yeah, I'm dead. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, there is always that kind of thing there. But yeah, just saying, it is that one that I think about those sort of things nowadays. And a lot of times, like whenever I think about certain movies and so on, I definitely like to think of them from all the angles, from what the producer has to go through to what the director is trying to accomplish and so on. But there is that kind of point where it's just like, that's why I think always some of the best directors are the ones that understand how the budget kind of works and go, okay, I can make this movie. I'm not going to ask you for more than I'm not going to ask you for way more than you possibly can have just because I have an artistic vision. Like, I get it. We're going to make a balanced approach movie here. And I can work with less. Almost like the people that I feel like that's like a Robert Rodriguez. Robert Rodriguez is always one of the best people of he knows how to work with the least amount of stuff possible and give you a real grandeur, take on whatever he's doing.
Yeah, I haven't seen his last one. But yeah, no. He definitely kind of knows how to look at it from all angles, especially since he does so much. He often produces a lot of his own stuff, and he writes and directs it and edits it. So on that aspect, but yeah, I don't know.
And does the music. See, this is where whenever I think about, I'm there's a reason why I was so inspired to do all that stuff. It's because Robert Rodriguez was my filmmaker hero growing up. So it's the fact when I see it, it's oh, he does it all. I want to be just like that, and that's what I always think when I see Robert. That's why. I always say it's he might not have maybe the greatest movies of all time, but just the process of making them is always what blows my mind when I think of Robert Rodriguez films.
I feel weird about Robert Rodriguez because I still like him, and I still like a lot of his early '90s stuff. But I think it's one of those things I was way more into him when we were in our early 20s, and I think because you got movies like El Mariachi, Desperado, Sin City, and all that. But now I kind of look at some of the stuff after a while, and I like Machete, but it's one of those things where I'm I feel like he's leaning too much into the grindhouse-ness of it all. I guess I like the simplicity and yeah, sure, Desperado's cheesy and over the top, but it's fucking awesome, and it's basically it's basically like an anime shoot 'em up, come to life, more or less at the end of the day when you think about that movie, and. I don't know. I guess sometimes when you just try to lean into the cheese too much, it can still be enjoyable because it's it's a fine line. It's really hard to do because Tarantino definitely did that with Kill Bill. And even go back to the other one, Scott Pilgrim is very intentionally melodramatic and over the top. But it's a very hard line to walk that it's cheesy, but it knows it's cheesy, but that kind of makes it funny, or that makes it cool, or that whatever. It's really hard to do,
Yeah, no, well, that definitely is. And it's I will say, the one thing about Robert is, as time has gone on, he definitely was the guy who fell way too hardcore in love with CGI. It would be interesting to see Robert go back and go okay, Robert, you can use a digital camera, but give us an old school movie. I would love to see him give us something that is Desperado again. Because almost past Desperado, and maybe a couple of in between movies around then, once he kind of starts going CGI, because even Once Upon a Time in Mexico has a lot of CGI stuff in it. That was one of those early. One, he's using digital camera. Two, I want to say that's when Law of the Blood, Law of the Bullet effects, and all that stuff are all CGI and so on like that. And it would be interesting for him to try to do a Tarantino thing where. Give us that just here's an old school. It doesn't have to be necessarily on film because I know he likes digital enough. You don't need to do that aspect, but yeah, just an old school effects movie.
Well, Desperado, just the dirt and the grime of that movie was just so believable. And even though I still like Once Upon a Time in Mexico, I guess it's such a weird transition because it's trying to be this big, like, modern day Western epic, but at the exact same time, we're spending so much time with characters we've never seen before. So it's kind of like, I know Antonio Banderas. I don't know what's going on with him, but Salma Hayek's apparently already dead. And all these, I don't know who the fuck these guys are. And yeah, Johnny Depp is fun to watch, but it suddenly became this weird, like espionage kind of like shoot 'em up movie, which was still enjoyable. I still like that movie, but at the exact same time, I love the simplicity of Desperado and just how, and that, plus also Once Upon a Time in Mexico also had this level of like, it was a little gritty, but it still had that kind of sense of like, it was a little shinier, you know what I mean? A little cleaner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because Desperado is just the fact that's, in a sense, the second movie coming right off of making El Mariachi. So you just got like that raw grit kind of going into it, and I think that's just what makes that one such a great film and just fantastic action and everything in there, and it's so wrong. It's like I said, I like all, anytime Rodriguez generally has something coming out that's probably a non-kids thing, I'm always kind of down for it. Like I like Battle Angel Alita. That was really good. Of course, the Machete movies were great, and so on. The downfall is, even though he does all kinds of projects, it's, Rodriguez probably still works just as hard as he always has, but he just doesn't come out with movies as often anymore, which is always kind of a bummer. It feels like now it's like you're lucky if you get a Robert Rodriguez movie like every 5 or 6 years.
Did you see his new one?
What was his new one?
The Hypnotized movie. I think it's Hypnotized. It's someone basically gets hypnotized into doing like a bank robbery or some shit, and they're trying to put the pieces together.
Well, that didn't come out in theaters, so I guess I didn't see that.
No, I saw a trailer for it, but yeah, I don't.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing too. Is like just nowadays, it's like, gosh, I mean, I'm
still listening.
I'll look that up if that is the case. I just did. Yeah, as I said, nowadays too is like when movies don't come out in theaters, they just have like, they probably have advertising somewhere. As I've always said, it's like I just don't see it ever. It's like it's just not the same way that like movie trailers are and so on. Hypnotic. Well, I'll have to look to see what that's all about.
Starring Ben Affleck and Alicia Braga.
Oh, you know what? I think I did see the trailer for that. Yes, I actually did. I didn't think that came out yet, though.
Oh, maybe it's not here. I assumed it was already out. Maybe I'm wrong, though.
No, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, I'm like, oh, I do remember that. Because I remember the trailer looked okay. It was one of those ones, like, if it was not Robert Rodriguez, I probably wouldn't have cared to go see it. But since it was Robert Rodriguez, I'll go see it. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. I totally spaced out on that one.
I like Alita, but I forgot that was I even kind of forgot that was a Rodriguez movie.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like, it reminds me, it's like, yeah, I think because of one, he's doing an adaptation and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And then you also got, what's his name? Terminator on there.
James Cameron.
James Cameron. So it feels like it's kind of like almost kind of like like a From Dusk Till Dawn, where it kind of has like a 2-director kind of feel to it.
That's one of the few movies where my parents, I mean, they saw that movie before I did. They were, did you see this Alita movie? Like, I know the anime, and they were asking me questions about the anime, which is something I never thought, like childhood, like Ryan would like, your parents like an anime movie, and they're like, oh yeah, you see this Alita movie? Yeah, check it out, kid, it's really good. Like, oh, my dad is showing me an anime movie. The fucking tables have turned. Holy shit. You
come back to the house, your dad's just on the recliner. He's got like the manga like cracked open on it, like that, like a beer in one hand. You're like, this is actually pretty fucking good. It's weird as shit, but
he's wearing like a Naruto like headband and wearing those fucking like black and red cloud geese or some shit. Just otaku.
He's like in a cosplay outfit almost. He's got like that demon slayer like little thing that the girl's got in her mouth the whole time. Like,
as long as we stay away from the fucking cat ears, we're fine. Anything else is great.
Yeah. But yeah, like, so I mean, what was I saying for Robert Rodriguez? So, well, whatever. Like, I will look forward to kind of that is. I was kind of thinking though, I was kind of going through like all the movies that's kind of come out this year so far, and it's like this is one of those weird years where I'm like, man, there's really like all the movies like that I've seen. It's like there's been like ones that are like they're good, but there hasn't been like that year of like, holy crap, you know what? This top 10 list by the time of the end of the year is gonna be really hard to make. It's more like one of those ones I'm like, I guess that could go right there. That, in previous years that would have been like a number 20 movie, but now it's looks like it's number 6.
Well, I'm guessing you didn't text me about it saying, dude, you got to check this out. So I'm guessing you didn't really care for it that much. But did you see the new Ninja Turtles?
I did, and I just was kind of bummed out by that. Like, in my simple way of saying it, I felt like they just downplayed the ninja part a whole lot and upplayed the teenage aspect way more. And to me, it felt like, I don't know, the best way I could describe it, it had that feeling that if you had somebody who's like want to make a Ninja Turtles movie and then be like, yeah, I watched Ninja Turtles when I was like 6. Have you watched it or read it or played it since then? No, fuck no. And like, oh, well, maybe you should, because there's a lot of material that's gone on even back in the, yeah. And I don't know, it wasn't god awful, but I was just kind of, I don't know, I was just kind of bummed out at it. I was like,
I really liked that one, actually.
That's what some people said. It's weird. It's that movie. I know people either they have the same kind of thing that I sort of felt, where they felt like, it just felt like they've just taken away from like what makes Ninja Turtles, or people are like, well, I thought it was really fun.
Well, the thing is, I thought it was really fun, and I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really fun, but then on top of that, I also thought that like there's been so many different iterations by now that I'm okay with them playing with the nuts and bolts of it. And the ninjas thing was still there. They're just very untrained. I just thought that was an interesting way to go about it. And I love the art style. I think one thing is the art style and the animation really is what I liked the most about it. So I think that was a lot easier for me to take in. Plus, it was one of the few times, like, thank you for not letting Shredder be the bad guy. And thank you for, like, picking anybody other than Shredder. And they got this weird ragtag group of villains. I mean, most of them only had a few lines, but at least there was at least Superfly was like the villain, and I thought Ice Cube did a good job as him. And I found myself chuckling throughout the movie. I wasn't dying of laughter, but I was chuckling, and I liked it. I mean, it's one of those things like, was I a little surprised when I found out they weren't actually from a ninja clan and that like they learned from watching TV? Yeah, but at the same time, I can kind of see that, and I've already seen similar things. I mean, I'll be honest, I'll take this. Like it feels like I feel like there is love that went into it, because I mean, even though like I liked the second of the Michael Bay movies, the Michael Bay ones honestly felt like, well, we got the license to it. Well, what do you want to do? I guess we'll make a movie of it. That's how it felt. Does someone actually feel like they went in with a vision? Because I don't think you just come out with this movie unless you go in with a vision or a take. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like it reminded me like when like an artist type person gets a hold of something and they want to do something kind of creative artistically with it, but they were missing the source material. Like I'll say, I like this other movie, but like it kind of reminds me of like Tim Burton Batman, where he has an artistic vision, but he doesn't have a source material vision the same way. You know, that's how this sort of felt to me. Where like, yo, we already have this kind of built up thing. Yeah, fuck it. I'm the artist. Let me tell you how I envision it. Like it had that kind of thing. Because as I said, like when they kind of like made Splinter, like just like, it's almost like he was just like this like drunken uncle that just kind of hung out and had, and just watched. It's like when he just watched martial arts movies to get the thing down. I'm like, God, I get that that's funny as a joke, but it's like if the one thing should be serious, it's like at least keep Splinter. And plus, it's got the weird thing. It's Jackie Chan. Like this day and age, does people not realize that he's not Japanese, right? You all know that he's Chinese. It's one of those ones. Like making that mistake, 20 years ago is one thing, but it's just one of those ones. Like I feel like, I don't know, like that's still one of those things about Ninja Turtles is the turtles can be kind of funny, but you should at least keep the world that they're in still like grounded a bit in like, it is kind of serious martial arts. They do take the training like that. It's not just like they went to the YMCA and got a pamphlet on like how to do self-defense and somehow, some way they're going to be, ninja masters and so on. Like, I don't know. It's one of those ones.
Well, I thought it was interesting because of since they're mutants, I took it as, okay, they have enhanced strength and they're faster. So that's the thing that kind of gives them the edge up on the humans. But when they actually go up against the mutants that have the same strength as them, they are like a lot more of kind of like, oh, we got to be smart about this. We got to be better about this. And I thought that was kind of an interesting duality. And even that montage when it's cutting between them, knocking out all these different gang members and all that, I thought that was pretty cool. And I guess the other aspect about this movie is I guess there's been so many versions that I understand if they want to play around with things a bit, and it still felt like the Ninja Turtles. It just felt kind of like a roughed up version, because I could see the inspiration more from like the Saturday morning cartoon, as well as like the visually, like the original comic, just visually, and then pouring in kind of like, I mean, they're also cherry picking from the newer movies with the way some of the characters looked and whatnot. I guess just this many iterations of it, I'm not surprised that they're finally bending this or bending that and tweaking it. And I see what you mean. I think they really did care and really like what they were making. That said, I mean, I wasn't laughing at every joke, and I appreciated finally there's a movie that came out that's under 2.5 hours. You know, but like,
oh gosh, yeah, that's so nice there, at least. Yeah, one of those ones. But
you know, I really enjoyed it. I really liked that movie. But no, you know, it's one of those things that, like, I guess I'm just also in a real Turtles mood recently, and that movie kind of like scratched that itch for me.
Yeah, I guess because I also was too, because we read the comics, and then I was reading through some of the other stuff, and I was watching through the 2003 show again, and so on. And those ones are just done so well that, like, I think when I went into this, it was just like, ugh. You know, like, I'll say this: if there was a sequel to this movie, I probably wouldn't go see it. I just
Really?
don't.
No.
I don't think I like.
I mean, wow, like you're like judging, like, wow, really, wow.
It sounds weird, but like I feel like I've almost gotten to this point now where, like, but there used to be a time where I'm like, man, I'll see anything and everything that there is because I'm just grateful that there is stuff. And now I'm also at the point where I'm like, well, you know what? There's enough stuff out there that, you know, if I have to cherry pick certain things and you know, it's fine if somebody else wants to go see it. You know, no problem there. I'm leaving that option always open. I don't want to be that person who's trying to stop other people, but I just gotta feel like, you know, I got a bunch of good Ninja Turtles that if I need to go to, I can always go back to them. And, you know, there's more than enough Ninja Turtles that cover me from like the original show and the 2003 plus the comic books that I'll probably have more Ninja Turtles, the view that, you know, than I can even possibly watch in my entire lifespan. So I felt like, yeah, as I said, it's just, I think, as I said, the weird was it's the ninja-ness. Like that's really what bothered me. There's other aspects I didn't like too, but it just, I felt like that's the one thing that like needs to be kind of right, and to take that part out and just sort of really downplay it, you know, I felt just seemed kind of, I don't know. Something we're just at that age now where like they'll make stuff where it's like, it doesn't take hard work or anything to be, you know, become stuff. You just gotta be there, and somehow, some way, it'll all work its way out. Like I like when Splinter's like, no, I hardcore trained these boys for like, you know, 14 years or however the hell old they are at that point there, and like, you know, literally like no different than like you see like an old school kung fu movie where the dude's like training like, you know, the whole way through and so on like that.
The way I took it was like from watching the movie, since they had the immune abilities, they could pull that off more. So through watching the movies, like, well, we could actually do a backflip like that. We could actually do it like this. So that's kind of like how I got it. But I know what you mean, as opposed to proper ninja training, which I get what you mean there. But who knows? I mean, this is obviously. I'm not saying, well, you know what, the sequel just might be the one to do it. I mean, I'm looking forward to the sequel, but at the same time, I could also see them like expanding on that in the sequel. And I mean, anybody who's faint spoilers, but there's a post-credit scene with Shredder, so you know, that could also be something like they might throw us a curveball where it might not even be kind of like, because that's something I liked about it is they want to be accepted by other mutants, so that puts them between a rock and a hard place of want to be accepted by humans, but also want to be accepted by the other mutants. So maybe the next one, it's like Shredder's like, hey, you want to be real ninjas? Come check this shit out over here. And then, I mean, I guess it's something. Who knows what they're going to do? I imagine it's going to be different enough, though.
Yeah. As I said, it's one of those ones. Yeah, like I didn't hate the movie or anything. I felt like it was definitely a lukewarm, because it's not saying that like there wasn't enjoyable stuff in there, but it was just enough to be like, you know what? I think I'm checking out. I'll wait till the next incarnation of Ninja Turtles. You know, this was definitely, just a little bit different.
Well, well, I liked it, but at the same time, no, I get you. You can't, they're not all going to hit for everyone the same way. So I get that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just buys. It's almost like if Batman just like, well, how did he get his training? Well, he watched a bunch of I Spy reruns, and next thing you know, he was a master at fucking everything. Like, oh, that's. I feel like the 10 years that Batman trains is what makes that's what makes him a superhero. It's not that he was born of powers or anything like that. He literally put the effort in. And I feel like the Ninja Turtles, I know they got mutant powers and they're enhanced, but they still I feel like they earned it. If not, they would just be a bunch of four brothers just sitting on the couch, fucking fat as fuck, just being like, hey, Mikey, pass the pizza, you mook. Oh,
just shits himself in his own shell. Yeah.
Yeah, they would just be like the fucking Honey Boo Boo of fucking mutants underground, just
losing legs to diabetes and shit. Yeah,
be like, dude, Splinter, what are you doing? Why do you keep fucking feeding him pizza? Be like, well, it's free. I got coupons at Little Caesars.
They just dump it down the sewers, because they're too cheap to pay their fucking garbage bill. No,
just
also.
They're just all about 400 pounds sitting there like Dad, the new Fast and the Furious movie, go get us a fucking copy of that.
It's also I guess it's just more they still did all the training. They just didn't have proper training. It was watching the movies, do that, that kind of thing. They were still underground for years training, because it was basically the same thing. Just he didn't have a scroll. He had a copy of Fist of Fury, or whatever other movie, which I thought was interesting. But no, I get what you're saying on that aspect, though. Yeah. Yeah,
because even Splinter's origin, as time has gone on too, they always kind of dwindle that down from being it used to be, okay, Splinter was the rat who watched everything that his master did, and that's how he learned all the secrets of martial arts. To ironically enough, the '87 show has even a better origin, I feel, than even the original, where he actually was one of the master students with Shredder and so on like that, and Shredder screwed him over, and that's why he had to be banned to New York. Banned in New York, God, it's not like it was banned to oh, you're going out to Nebraska.
Well, I just remember because I came across on YouTube, and I guess the AI, the robot, knew that I was looking into stuff for the movie coming out, started throwing a bunch of Ninja Turtle stuff that way. It was the original first couple episodes, and I'm watching that cartoon-ass thing, that soup, yes, I was dishonored because of Shredder, and it just when I went to bow, and Shredder's does the shifty eye shit, stabs his kimono into the ground so he can't bow, and he says oh, dishonorable. It's just dude, it was this guy. You see, you
must know that this guy's an ass. Come on, let's be honest.
Look at this shifty-eyed fuck.
You see him for 16 hours every day.
I can't be the only one that notices that. Does anybody ever notice? Anyone else notice that whenever someone fucks up, he's always rubbing his hands together, smiling? Am I the only one noticing that?
Yeah, one of those ones. But even still, though, I like that origin right there is my favorite one of them all. The whole thing there, and so he is a martial artist, and just the ooze because he was hanging out with the rats. That's what turned him into a rat. I was I like that, the logic that's all in there. I could buy that story.
It makes more sense than the actual comic where the rat is doing kicks too. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's I remember that was the one for the longest time in the movie. I'm that seems kind of corny. I don't know why they went with that one. And then when I saw it in the original comic book, I was okay, I actually give them props for following the comic. That almost that was okay, now I accept it, but it's still my second favorite origin.
Mm-hmm. No, I get you. But yeah,
there's that one, and yeah, trying to think what the heck else. Oh, there was that new Dracula movie. I saw that, that was pretty interesting.
Is that the boat one?
Yeah, the one where it's hey, that one chapter in the book where those dudes are sailing out there, and it's kind of, sort of written off as oh yeah, huh? They all died it was fucking Jurassic Park, or Lost World. I wonder what happened there. Oh, whatever. I thought it was kind of cool that they focused on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to see that, but it's a matter of just literally last movie I saw was Ninja Turtles, and there was a big gap between movies even on that too. I haven't had a chance to see Blue Beetle yet.
Yeah, I haven't got around that one yet either. I wanted to see that one too, and then I just never. I got the Blue Beetle poster. That was there at the movie theater. There you go. I'm taking that.
Nice. I mean, I hear I hear it's good. It's just not amazing, but I hear it's kind of like it's like as far as the characterization in that aspect, it's all good. But as far as everything like superhero or sci-fi adjacent, it's like you've seen this. That's kind of what I've heard people say.
Well, I hate to sort of say that's what the trailer looked like. It didn't look bad. It's like it looks like there's a lot of those superhero movies where it's like if this was 2007, you'd be like, dude, that's fucking awesome. But now it's like I feel like you gotta sort of step the game up. You know what I mean? We've seen all the just like the bread and butter origin story movies and so on so much that's like I feel like you can't just put a Mexican twist on it and call it brand new like that. I think the producers think they're like, oh, we're so revolutionary. It's like. But that's all you did. You got to add another dimension there and so on like that. Like that's not enough. Just because you think you have the Coco of superhero origin movies is not going to work out.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. I guess we won't know till we see it. I wouldn't mind seeing it. But
yeah, I still want to see it, but
to go see it. Yeah,
but it is one of those ones where it's like it's almost like. Yeah, you just got you should just do the Blue Beetle Booster Gold and just throw them all together and just have this cool, ridiculous movie.
It looks kind of like Homecoming, kind of. A little bit of Homecoming, a little bit of Iron Man, sort of. You know what I mean? It's kind of what it looks like it's sort of going for. But well, I guess still need to see it, you know. And then I heard that, like, the bad guy is just another guy, like, with, I have a similar suit, and I'm just kind of coming at the end. I know that's a superhero thing. There's the evil parallel version, but sometimes it's just like they throw a twist or they make it a little different. But I mean, like, really, but I hear all the characterization, and then I'm like, the family stuff is really good about it, but it's just the superhero stuff, which isn't bad. It's just like, yeah, you know. So we'll see if it's out of theaters soon. It'll probably come streaming in the next 3 days. So
yeah, no, that's definitely, as I said, like I'd like to see it, but it just doesn't look like, oh man, if I miss that in theaters, I'll be kicking myself for the rest of my life. I don't feel like it's going to be one of those ones.
Did you hear that people are trying what they're trying to get James Gunn fired over now?
Oh God, what now?
It's nothing. He's not getting fired, but somebody's trying to like start a campaign because they found some old Facebook comments. And keep in mind, this is back before he was making money, he was making money back when he was working in trauma, you know.
Yeah.
So he was saying he had like a thing like, all right, here's the thing: original 1989 Batman fucking sucks, and you know what? Like Christopher Nolan's like 2 newest Batman movies, Dark Knight, I mean, they're decent, but they have fucking problems. Batman Begins isn't even that fucking good, but it's better than Batman 1989. And you know what? Batman and Robin is better than Batman 1989, and that still fucking sucks. So it's just like this big, long, like, angry edgelord, like, you know, like, this is why this movie sucks, this is why that movie sucks. But, you know, this is like from like a while back. And then he's like, you know what? I was kind of working through some shit and I was a little bit more pessimistic. And obviously people are saying, fire this man! He clearly does not care! You know, but then it's just like, I mean, I don't think I was ever that guy, but there was a point where I was just like, 89's not nearly as good as Begins. So it's one of those kind of things, like, you know, he was just going through that phase a little late, I guess, but, you know.
Well, and I'll say that stuff happens to everybody. That'd be like if like I went to make a Ninja Turtles movie 20 years from now, and they pulled up this episode, and be like, "See, he fucking hated the Seth Rogen one. The Seth Rogen one's a masterpiece," you know. like it would literally be like that, you know. And you're probably not listening to why, you know, he didn't like 89 Batman, something like that. I mean, I like to assume maybe it's because he read the comic books and he actually knew how good they were inside there, and it just wasn't translating the exact same way on there. You know, one of those things.
That's what he said. He basically said something to that, like in the post. Like I didn't actually look up the post. I was listening to a podcast. They talked about it, but and like, yeah, so people are trying to get him fired for some shit. He's like, hey, WB, did you know what he said about you guys? Like, almost 20 years ago. You know? So,
yeah. We found record evidence of him kicking fucking Foghorn Leghorn in the back of an alley.
Yeah. Boy, I said,
would you get your boot off me?
You shut the fuck up, you know, just like...
But yeah, it's just one of those ones where, because that's the thing, is like I feel when it does come to a lot of those older adaptations, or just any of them in general, like you you sometimes can't go into them 100% going like, oh God, it's got to do the comic books or else I'm going to be super pissed or else that just doesn't work out. You got to kind of go, okay, there's got to be a little bit of breathing room. And I think the older something is, and sort of the time that it comes in, like each thing's like a stepping stone. You know what I mean? Like 89 is already a big step up. Yeah, is it perfect Batman yet? No, it's not. But not even as Batman Begins perfect Batman yet. But it's still another step up. Each one's another step up. It's like I like just to assume that one day someone's going to finally get it where here's Batman. Here he is, just like he is the comic books. We don't have to question this. You just already know. Let's just roll with it. And I feel like it's a slow process, but it gets there. But, you know, each one of the steps in between, I think you should almost just take them sort of at face value. I'm not saying you got to love them. You know what I mean? It's like the new Ninja Turtles movie. I don't like it, but I know that there's going to be people out there who do. And if, you know, that's for them, that's cool. You know what I mean? You know, but yeah, it's just one of those ones that, yeah, there's just certain things that, you know, it's just not going to be the same as the original source material. And then there's other things where they actually become better than the source material. Sometimes some things get more dialed in as they go on.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, MCU has not really, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was pretty good, but recently I don't think majority, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Black Panther 2 I thought were pretty good, but for a while I think a lot of their like stuff has been kind of very whatever for the most part.
Yeah, middle of the road.
But that said, I think that some of their earlier things, they took some of the like most lukewarm comics and kind of made like really good movies out of them. Like Captain America Civil War, like the Civil War comic is not that great. They do, a lot of the characters do things really out of character just for the sake of drama. But the Civil War movie feels like a very natural progression, and it's a much more like fine-tuned. Yeah, you don't have all the characters interacting, but I don't think you really need all the characters interacting. That there's too much going on, you know. They and then like on top of that, you also had like actually, this is another one, a Phase 4 that was pretty good. Spider-Man 3. How that was pulling from One More Day, which is one of the most like fucking most cop out bullshit stories out there, where they put Spider-Man into the corner. They wrote themselves into a corner because things were starting to go good with Spider-Man. He was going to get married to Mary Jane, and then like Aunt May got shot, and his identity was revealed to the world. All these things happen, and like, oh my God, the comics could be different forever. And, you know, plus everyone knows who he is. And that only lasted like a few months before they said, we're just going to reboot it, but just Spider-Man, just Spider-Man, just Spider-Man. That's all we're going to do, redo. I'm like, are you fucking kidding? So they restart Spider-Man and Spider-Man only right there. And like right when they did all this shit, it's going to sell comics. Where this movie, there seemed to be more weight behind everything. Since he could remember, and since there's a sacrifice that had to be made, it made more sense in this context. So there are times where they took a bullshit story, or at least a mediocre story, and really expanded upon it.
Yeah, and I think those are always good examples of like when it does go the distance and makes a difference in the way that it's portrayed in the new adaptation version of it. So there's so much stuff there. But as I said, yeah, it's like those ones. It's like when those new Marvel movies come out. Like, you know, generally everything. I'm looking forward to. You know, I'll go to see them in the movies and so on. I mean, yeah, they have been kind of, for the most part, kind of at that like medium level where it's like, decent enough. You know, if you didn't see it, it wasn't like you were missing out, almost kind of thing. You know, I don't know. It's just this year's one of those ones where I just feel like there hasn't been just a copious amount of movies. Because as I said, I was kind of looking back through the year and kind of going, okay, what's all the stuff I've seen so far to kind of give me sort of a refresher on my list, you know, since we're a little bit past the halfway part by now, or a couple months past it. And I was just like, man, it's one of those ones where it's just, there's just not as much stuff. And I kind of hate to sort of say it because you do get that feeling where you're like, is this the beginning of the end? I know that movies are getting to that point where, you know, in 20 years from now, I have a feeling that movies will be like plays where like they'll still be there, but it's not like, not everybody goes and sees them anymore. Like, you know, it's for a select group of people, you know, and I don't mean that to say that bad because I love movies. That's like my favorite thing, but I just know that I think one, video games will be the number one, that's the given. And two, probably what's going to follow that is TV. I think TV is actually finally like going, we have now taken over your spot, movies. This battle we've had for 70 years is finally coming to an end.
I think we have to worry when we have NPC streamers starting to do that shit when they get the big screen interpretation, like, oh, sorry, we can't make room for whatever massive franchise, whatever tiny small micro budget movie. We gotta watch. We got an NPC streamer doing this shit. You know about that shit?
No, I have no idea. Like what? So like the robot streams?
Kinda. So basically, it's I don't. I'm sorry. I'll finish your thought because I don't want to just totally derail us. It's going to lead us.
I felt like that already derailed my thought. I can't remember what I was talking about because now I just pictured like
basically like movies kind of on their way out, sort of, and just for the sake of just something that's very short and very of the
Well, no, I think the cool thing will be. I'm just going to say this real quick on movies. Is I think as time goes on, what will be left of movies will be there'll be a lot of these neat kind of almost in a sense. More personal films and so on like that. Like people will make stuff like Kevin Smith, Woody Allen style movie. I think that kind of stuff will actually be the draw because the target audience for that already at the moment is a small group anyways. I think there'll still be a place for people who just love it as like a fine art kind of thing. And that will kind of stick around. I think as far as just major motion pictures goes, that's the one that's kind of like dwindling and it's, I mean, you watch it, go to the movie theaters. There's generally not that many people there too often. Once in a blue moon, if there is a real big movie, and to top it off, there's just not a whole lot of movies anymore. Like, you could almost see every single movie that's in a month in like 2 days.
Michael Mann's next movie is like a movie about Ferrari and stuff being done by Neon. And it's one of the few movies going right now through the strike because Neon is meeting all the requirements in order to allow the actors and everyone to work. So, and it's one of those things where Neon, I've seen like their logo in front of movies in the theaters, but not that frequently. So that's kind of cool that the idea that like smaller studios like that are building. He's got someone big. I think it's like Adam Driver or someone like that. So, so it's kind of like. So, and I know Neon's not like micro budget, but it's smaller. It's smaller. So the idea that they're coming in like, but we can still make movies. Yeah, listen, we got someone like Michael Mann. We don't got some no name that's trying to prove himself out of South by Southwest or something.
Yeah, well, and as always, if a big group gets blocked, most people go, "Oh, God, see." It's like, no, that's a great thing because that actually allows a lot more independent type stuff to actually. They finally actually have a space that they can kind of come in. So generally, if one thing gets blocked, it just actually opens the door for a bunch of other people. So it's always good to kind of stir things up in that sort of sense, but yeah, it is just one of those ones. Like, it's gonna be interesting. What next? If this year's already kind of dwindled, next year might be even more dwindled from like the lack of certain movies coming out, and so on. And yeah, it is kind of a weird one to kind of just sort of watch this time period.
Well, it's also like, I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are movies that came out. There are movies that are coming out, and movies that came out that I'm excited for. I mean, like. Yeah, like I'm excited for, certain big IPs coming out, but at the same time, like kind of like what you said about Ninja Turtles, the new one. Like I like the new one, but at the same time, there's so many things coming out that like I don't feel the need. I need to see like the IP to everything I like. You know what I mean? I don't need to see that film adaptation. There's be the ones I really want to see, but then I was also even thinking about my list of movies this year, where it's basically just kind of like I'm thinking like, because I'm not gonna lie, I try to make it a little varied, but I'm like I haven't had a whole lot of time to go to the movies that much, so it's like okay, Across the Spider-Verse, okay, Spider-Man Across the Universe, okay, Super Mario Brothers, so like
was Spider-Man this year? I thought that was last year.
Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah. Sorry, for some reason, never mind. Yeah, that came
Did I
out.
say Spider-Man twice? Maybe I said Spider-Man twice.
Maybe did. I was drawing a blank. I was like, wait. I was like, yeah. But yeah, Spider-Man, all that kind of stuff like that. Yeah, there's been there's a handful of movies, but like, yeah, there's a lot of these ones that like it's not that they're bad movies, it's like they're good movies, but I'm like, God, on another year that would have been one of those ones you're like, that's like a 13. You know what I mean? Maybe not a top 10, but now it's like, well, I guess that 13 is I guess it's number 6 now. Like it's moving its way up, But
yeah, there's movies that are going to come on my list. So, well, this is here just because it is the 10th movie I saw. So
yeah, like it just fits there because there was a space and that was the only other thing. And it's something that I'm almost at that point too, where there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, gosh, I could literally almost even cut myself off from certain things and be like, dude, there's so much old stuff that I could catch up on that I don't think there's even enough time left in life to that like would actually satisfy you for a great length, of time in a sense. And it is kind of interesting like there. That's why I feel like that's why I like TV. I 100% just cut TV off. I'm like, you know what? I don't have the time for it. It's one of those ones like there's enough movies for me to watch. There's enough older like cartoons and TV and all that stuff. Like I'm good to go like on there. Like I feel like it's one of those ones you almost got to kind of choose your battles of like what you're going to do. It's been like, I know what I like. I like movies, and I'm going to stick with that. And television just sort of gets in the way, takes up too much time. And not saying that there can't be good stuff out there, but you know what I mean? That's cool. Like if I had to watch that means I wasn't watching movies. So I got to pick what I want. And it's even the same thing. I feel like it's like kind of like cartoons and so on like that. They're like, yeah, there might be some new cartoons and so on like that, but I could really probably watch 90s and 2000s cartoons for the rest of my life, and there was more than enough that would keep me occupied, because by the time I finished the whole list of everything like that, all the other ones would be like, man, it's been 12 years since I've seen Samurai Champloo. I better go back and watch that again.
Just coming out like, what year is it? You just have like nothing but like things from like 2007 and back.
Yeah, it's just that one where I just kind of think about it, like right now I'm watching through The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest again, and it's just like, one, that show's so good. It's just one of those ones, like that's one of those like pinnacle shows of the 90s. Plus that's my favorite variation, Johnny Quest, and I like all Johnny Quest, but
I started the Venture Brothers, the what's supposed to be I'm not sure if they're going to do the thing where they just have like one or two movies, or they continue it through movies, or if this is the final one. So far, it just feels like another episode, just continuing where the show picked up like 5 years ago or something. But yeah, or maybe not 5. Yeah, I think 5 years ago. I was still living in San Francisco, I think, when I saw the last episode. So Jesus,
it's been a while.
But I was started it today. I haven't finished it yet. It's not that long of a movie. Just shit came up. So I'm wondering if like if this is they're gonna pick it up through like a few movies, or if it's just gonna be like, no, just one more movie and we're done. But either way, because just right now it doesn't feel like that climactic where it's at. But I guess time will tell.
Well, that's like Def Clock just had a new movie too that I actually kind of want to see anyways, even though I feel like I need to refresh myself on the show because I haven't seen it since it literally aired on like Adult Swim back in the day. But it's just like that movie's supposed to be kind of like this is kind of like the ending. Like, not saying that we couldn't do something afterwards, but this pretty much wraps it all up.
Like Adult Swim has been doing that with some of their shows. Like 3 shows have got that treatment. There's an Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie that went straight to video and theaters, and not theaters, straight to video and HBO Max. Not counting the movie, the theatrical movie. There's one that was I didn't finish it because I was just like, this shit was way funnier to me when I was in high school. So I just
that's the thing about Aqua Teen. I remember when I went back, I bought like a season of it. I'm like, man, I haven't watched this, since like 2004. Then I went back and watched it. And I was like, it's interesting. I feel like there's definitely a time and a place for that show. Yeah, there's definitely moments, but I feel like I think also is that show has that feeling like when you watch that as like a kid, you're like, holy shit, this looks like this is possible animation wise. You know what I mean? That's what makes those great early Adult Swim shows kind of nice, is that like they almost like set the bar so low that you're like, dude, it almost feels like almost anybody can jump in on this.
I have a feeling if I watched Frisky Dingo, I'd still enjoy Frisky Dingo. But like,
yeah,
I bet I like give that thing the treatment. That thing's been waiting, needs a fucking ending. But like, yeah, it was Metalocalypse, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and Venture Brothers, which are getting these final movies, or at least I don't know. I didn't finish the Aqua Teen one. I put it on, I'm like, oh, Aqua Teen. I'm like, oh yeah, it's really been a minute. I remember these characters, but I mean, I remember laughing more too. So times change, I guess. Oh, Run the Jewels is in it. That's kind of cool. All right, but yeah. I mean, time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, no, as I said, like I'd like to see these ones, but sometimes I do feel like it's even like Venture Brothers. I'm like, man, it's been a while since I watched Venture Brothers. I'd probably have to somewhat refresh myself on that one too before I watch that final movie.
Because that one's very lore heavy. Because they expect you to like remember like characters and things from like seasons back. It started off as just kind of like, oh yeah, it's kind of a parody of Johnny Quest, but then it just like it's still a comedy, but then it takes its lore and its like twist and it's like the politics of that show. It expects you to keep up with it, you know?
Yeah, so those ones are kind of tough ones and whatnot. But yeah, like even going into Johnny Quest, like that show still blows my mind. It like how almost adult that show kind of going, like there's full on people die left and right in it. There's actual guns being used. It's like one of those things it's like kids won't understand this nowadays, but back in the day we used to be able to actually have real guns and Brace Bannock could kill a man and no one seemed to care, you know?
I know he's had this sometime back when you mentioned Johnny Quest. I remember Race Band said something like, man, I feel like I just got to hell and back. I'm like, they said hell on a Cartoon Network show. What? And not only that, he strangled a guy earlier in this episode. This is the raw shit.
Yeah, Zach, that's what I mean. Is that show was kind of like, I feel like because it had the pedigree of being Johnny Quest, they probably could get a, because, you know, like what adult was really going to argue with it? It's like, oh, it's Johnny Quest. God damn, it's a goddamn legacy show. Like, that's what got me into science, damn it. Like, don't take that away from kids, because that's what I always think about. Like, when you watch the old Johnny Quest, it's if you combine generally two things. If you said, like, hey, if you had Kid 007 combined with, like, you know, science fiction horror movies, like that's, you almost get Johnny Quest. You know, that's almost like the mixed match of like high adventure, cool science, you know, monsters and so on like that.
A little bit of the Harvey Brothers.
Yeah, a little bit of that kind of, or yeah, the Hardy Boys.
Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
Two young whippersnappers.
I kind of love that one, you know, but yeah, you get all that kind of stuff in there and so on like that. And, but I just feel like that, like the Johnny Quest, especially the one in the 90s, like that show, I feel is like one of those, like, doesn't get the credit I think it deserves as much. I mean, people do, like, you know, you tell somebody from the 90s, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. But it's like, it doesn't get brought up the same way that, of course, Batman or Spider-Man and X-Men do and all those ones like that.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't. But I think people like, I'll be honest, I kind of forgot, oh, yeah, the Quest World thing. You know what I mean? That's one that kind of... Like,
that's the one that I could see if you were a kid watching that might throw someone for a loop, because you wouldn't understand that actually is very advanced looking for like 1994. It
was that and Beast Wars.
Yeah, Beast Wars and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah, you got some of those. And then what was the other one? Reboot?
Which, you know, that had to be a bunch of guys, like a bunch of like, you know, Reboot. That had to be a bunch of like, you know, Gen Xers being like, man, we gotta show these kids Tron. You know, that's probably what it is. Like, dude, these kids understand Tron. We gotta find a way to get this into Johnny Quest.
100%. Well, because that's what, whenever I think about, like, you know, when anything's ever made, it's pretty much like, for the target audience made for, it's probably made by people like generally probably 10 to 25 plus years older, trying to, like, in a sense, incite what they want to have. Like, it's weird. It's a weird, like, shift of like how old these things is. Like, what might seem very modern, so on like that, is almost coming from the mind of a guy, like what he wanted to see 20 years ago in a weird way, and so on like that, and having it all come together.
Yeah, when I'm thinking back on that, I remember I was like, oh, cool, they're going to Quest World. Now, if I watched it, like, oh, fuck, they're going to Quest World. Okay.
It's still interesting. I like that kind of stuff because it really does always take me back when I see old computer CG stuff like that. I think it's almost such a neat look at stuff. Yes, is that like, oh, I love Lawnmower Man. And then the way I kind of look at it is, it gives me the same feeling like nowadays. It's almost the same way of seeing like claymation. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, it's just this one, like, here's this really cool old technology that you generally will never see ever again, you know, other than, you know, special places or when people are trying to give it like a nostalgic feel. But it almost takes you back to a certain times, you know, especially if you're there or if you're not there. Like, I mean, like, to me, like, I feel like I watched Jason the Argonauts or Sinbad and the Seven Seas, like one of those ones. I just think about watching those movies as a kid and be like, man, that animation still is always awesome.
Yeah. You know, I haven't actually seen those ones, but I'll check them out one day.
You never seen those? Well, geez, boy, do we know what we got to do on one of the upcoming episodes of Old Man Orange. We're going to have the Ray Harryhausen marathon.
Right. Like, we talking like how they kind of like old Clash of the Titans type thing. Where,
yeah,
like,
he did Clash of the Titans as well too.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So yeah, he's like the dude who did all like, and I think he did it all like by himself. Like the old guy's like, Ray, what are you gonna need? Give me a pack of smokes in 72 hours, and I will make you a monster.
Just you wait and fucking see. Just leave the clay and the camera. I got this shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And damn it, when I exit this room, you better have a 12-pack of beer or someone's going to die. So yeah, like he's like the dude who did like all of it. Like these kids nowadays, they got to have teams of 36 and they got to have strings attached and they got to have CG to help them, handheld them in there. Not me.
They got to see their families. See these hands? They've never hugged their child, okay? I don't know what my own flesh and blood feels like. I've been making this thing for the last 20 fucking years, and you don't see me complaining.
Be like, if Ray's like, he's like, I have my own kids. See, there they over there. There's just like 3 kids, like clay-made kids over there. Like, well, who needs real thing when you got the clay one? It's even better. They never talk back.
Some guy in his 30s walks in. Dad, it's been long enough. You're not my real son.
The clay versions are always better.
Isn't that right? So we're like, all right, let him do his thing. All right, you tried. All right, we'll try it again next year. All right, cool.
Just let him work on the next movie. Believe me, don't think he needs any assistance. He's gonna do it all himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know there's so much of that kind of neat, fun, old technology. I don't know. I just anything like that. As I said, like the Quest World thing, like that's one of those ones. Like when I see it, it's like, oh shit, like that's almost like the experience of seeing like Laserdisc for the first time, or Sega CD, or like interactive CD-ROM type games, like where you're in some goofy, weird world and so on like that. You're like, this is mind blowing. It's like I'm literally there.
All I gotta do is press A to continue.
Yeah, that's it. Just like, but it makes you feel like I'm part of the action, So there's just all that crazy stuff and whatnot. But no, I think we do need a Ray Harryhausen. This is like the most old man orange thing you possibly have. Like, what's your show about? Well, we do really old shit. So what are you doing? We're doing a Ray Harryhausen marathon. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I'll be honest. I'll be wrapping it up here soon. A big thing is like, well, what can I get here? And like, there's a couple of things I want to see. But it's just like, a couple like foreign movies I want to watch, but it's like over here, it's kind of harder to get them because like Dutch subtitles, they often don't have like English subtitles go along with it. I got Trigun on Netflix, but it's all in Dutch or Dutch subtitles. So yay for that.
Yeah.
There's usually an English dub, not always. So, and if there is, if it's in Japanese or whatever other language, it usually is in English most of the time. There are exceptions though. So if I can get it, and yeah, we'll figure it out. But
yeah, no, we'll figure out what we got going down the pipeline.
Wouldn't surprise me if they're on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah, whatever we have. That's what I
15 years ago.
I find those movies on YouTube. I'm like, there we go, because that's almost been the main place I find like the things that I want to watch. Is like somebody uploads a cool old movie on YouTube. I'm like, sweet, because you can't find that anywhere else. Sometimes not even on DVD or something, So you get that there. But yeah, we got an episode in going down. Get some more, go from there. But till then, you can go to oldmanorange.com where you'll find more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys, which Pizza Boys at the moment, you can find that digitally with episode or issue 14, Ninjutsu Sunrise Part 2. It is digitally on Amazon / Kindle, Comixology, all that stuff there. So whether you got Comixology Unlimited / Kindle Unlimited, there's choices. Get it on there. That's almost become my preferred way to read anymore anyways, is digital. I know it sounds weird, but like then you're not trying to find new boxes and new shelves to try to place somewhere that you don't have the room for. And you're like, there's a corner over here. I think I could shove another crate. Oh, look, exactly. The crate does double duty. I put 3 crates up. I can put a TV on top of it. Yeah. But yeah, find that there. And then on oldmanorange.com, got all the old animations, extra podcast, all that fun stuff. Trying to get back on all that good stuff going there. But till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.